Live.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of You Only Be School Once Season 2. I'm your host, Akshay Sirsalewala. I'm a chartered accountant. I've cleared all levels of CFA and FRM. I graduated from IIM Kozhikode in 2020, worked for 2 years with Deloitte, India, and now currently working with BCG. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I hope that this webinar is really informative for all of you. Now, in India, there are two pieces of paper which everyone gives a lot of importance to. One is the wedding biodata, and second is your CV. What what we will do today is talk about the second one, which is your CV. Throughout the entire session, we will talk about the timeline you get to make your CV, the do's and don'ts, the things you need to avoid, basic mistakes which people make, and how you can make your CV stand out. And to help me with that, I have a wonderful panel, 4 people from different areas of employment, consulting, finance, general management, sales and marketing, etc. And they will help you to make your CV in a better way. So, without wasting much time, let's start with introductions. Richaa, why don't you begin?
Hey everyone, hi. So I'm Richaa. I passed out from IIM Lucknow in 21, and post that I have been working with BCG. I interned with BCG as well during my summers at IIML. And prior to that, I am an economics graduate from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, and I've worked in Deloitte for 2 years. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Richaa. And not to use a cliche pun, but delighted to see you here. Moving on to Harshita. Harshita, why don't you go next?
Hi everyone, good morning. Funny enough that Akshay mentioned 2 pieces of paper and the wedding biodata because he recently got married.
Yeah.
So it's relatable for him. So yeah, just a quick introduction from my end. I graduated out of SRCC in 2019 in economics. Post that I joined IIMA as a fresher. So for all the freshers, I'm no longer a fresher, I have WorkX now, but I'd be able to relate and answer accordingly. So I passed out of IIMA in 21. And post that, I joined TCS. I'm in their management consultancy division in the strategic leadership program. Happy to be here. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Akshay.
Thank you so much, Harshita. Glad to have you here. Arpika, why don't you go next?
Hi guys, I'm Arpika. So I'm a chartered accountant by profession and I graduated out of IIM Indore in 2022. Post that I have joined JPMC in their investment banking division. So yeah, I interned with Wonder Cement as part of my summer internship. So yeah, looking forward to this session.
Great. Thank you so much, Arpika, for being a part of this. And last but not the least, Hirena, why don't you go?
Hi everyone, I am Hirena. I graduated from the Indian School of Business in 2020. Post that, I have been working with Nestle, now as an area sales manager. I joined as a management trainee. I graduated from NM College doing with a BMS degree in 2015, post which I worked in the financial services industry. And then I moved to my function industry, everything post MBA.
Okay, thank you, Hirena, for the lovely introduction. Great. Okay, so guys, now that we all have introduced ourselves, let's start with the first the first question which comes in most people's minds, which is, the summer placements are just around the corner. I mean, once you join, within 2 to 3 months, the summer placement begins. So the first question which most people have is, are summer placements really important? Are they really important? And I know that Hirena, who is an ISB graduate, is not the right person to answer this, but I think, the other 3 can maybe give their 2 cents on this.
Okay, to avoid the awkward silence, just I'll start. But definitely, no one can ever undermine the importance of summer placements because as soon as you enter B school, you just blink an eye and there are your summer placements. So even in the longer picture, they're a huge precursor to where you get placed in the finals. So no matter whether you get your dream company or not, it's really important. It's a huge determinant in terms of how you land up in finals. So that would be my 2 cents on it. Over to whoever would like to take it up from there.
Yeah, so one more thing what one can do during the summer placements is, for example, I'll give my own example. I am a chartered accountant, so I obviously wanted to be in the finance domain for the finals. So this was the only time during summer placements where I could get to experience marketing domain as well. So I applied for marketing company and I got into Wonder Cement as a marketing intern. So I could get my hands on marketing also. So you can use this opportunity to explore various domains in summer placements.
Yeah, and as Harshita mentioned that, final is a long stint, so summers is like a shorter stint to that. So I think you also have an opportunity to get PPOs, and if you actually like what you did in your summer internship and you did a good work, you get a PPO. So your life is sorted and you don't have to sit for final placements. So that's also an advantage. Also, a lot of us come as freshers and we really don't know what corporate is. So that 2 months into a corporate life gives you an idea that what are you going to get out of, like, once you're out of this. So, yeah.
Right, great points raised. I think one of the very important points raised by Arpika, that it's a good chance to experiment. So there are so many people who, when you enter B school, everyone wants to get into consulting. Then summer internship happens, and then most people realize that consulting बहुत ज़्यादा hectic है, नहीं करना. So it's a good chance to experiment. Maybe you can try out marketing, sales, whatever. You can maybe experiment in those 2 months, and then take a more informed call during your finals. And secondly, as Richaa said, that if you get a PPO, life is quite relaxed. So I'm sure, Richaa, you've chilled a lot in the second year. Is that correct?
Yeah, like at least I was free of the pressure of not sitting for finals. So yeah, it was great.
Right. Okay, great. So, so essentially summers are important because a good chance to experiment, and also, if you get a PPO, then life is quite relaxed in the future.
I want to add to that, even though life is quite relaxed, but if you get a PPO, you can always, it's referred to as a bargaining chip or a blue chip that you can use to get into a company of your choice.
Right.
So I think the relaxation part is there, as Richaa mentioned, but there's more to the PPO than that as well.
That's a very, very good point, because there is a concept of dream companies in most campuses. So even if you get a PPO, let's say you get a PPO from some XYZ company and you want a better company, you can use that PPO as a bargaining chip to get into that dream company of yours. So that is another advantage of getting a PPO. Right. Okay. So we now there are quite a few questions which are being asked by the audience members. Let's take one of them and let's then continue with our set of questions. Raju has asked that why corporates choose one-page CV over 2 to 3 pages of CVs. And I'm sure all of us have the answer to this, but why doesn't anyone take this up?
Okay, so I would like to take this up. So I have a counter question. If you are a recruiter and if you have 600 CVs with you, what would you prefer, a 2 to 3 pages CV or a 1-page CV? So yeah, so as recruiters, we people get a lot of CVs, and that too, yours is not the only campus, so they have to look at thousands of CVs. So it becomes an easy job for them if they have a 1-pager instead of a long CV.
Absolutely. I remember when I was part of the recruitment team in Deloitte, we used to get around 450 CVs from each campus, and if we went to ISB, then we would have gotten 1,000. So you have 500, 600 CVs with you, and you hardly get enough time to shortlist people. So 1 page makes life easier for everyone. Plus, I think 1 page is enough to highlight all the good things in your CV. It's a CV, not an autobiography.
I would like to add to that. So for campus recruitment, like Arpika and Akshay both mentioned, since there are a lot of CVs for recruiters to flip through, it makes sense. And from a PlaceCom college perspective also, the standard norm is a 1-pager. However, if you're applying off campus, at that time you would want to elaborate more, and so even when I receive any CVs on the portal, etc., I've seen that off-campus recruitments usually have a 2 to 3 pager CV, which is very detailed and nuanced compared to our usual CVs, which are 1 pager and just so text heavy to look at.
Right. Moving on to Hirena also. Hirena, so in ISB you have people with more work experience generally as compared to the IIMs. So can you guys make a 2-page CV? Is that possible? Like I know that in IIMs you cannot make a 2-page CV even if you want to.
See, okay. To be honest, in ISB they don't really specify how many pages your CV should have.
Okay.
But people do follow the norm and the standardized format of having a one-page or CV. My point of view on a CV, or when I get CVs for certain roles, is that, like you said, Akshay, I don't think that what you have done previously in terms of work experience, education, extracurriculars, and internships, those are the four broad sections of a CV normally. I
Right.
don't think they can not be compiled into a one pager. So I think it is also signal as to how far you can simplify your own work that you have done, and how easily can you communicate that on a one pager. That is also something that recruiters could potentially look at, rather than having a really long CV which they have to go through line by line. So it's you can do it. It's just about knowing what exactly you want to put into your CV, and it can be a one pager CV quite easily, I feel.
Right. Right. And just adding here, I would say that I remember when my final year CV for on-campus jobs, we had 2 or 3 lines for subjects which we used to study. I had 4 to 5 lines for case competitions. But now when I have my CV for for applying to corporates, there is no need for those 3 lines on subjects. There is no need for those case competitions, because I don't think after 2 to 3 years case competitions will be a differentiating factor. So I think you can tailor your CV based on where you are in your career. Yes, Harshita, you're saying
Do you
something.
add extracurriculars now?
I do. Yeah, you don't?
Okay. No,
Yeah,
I'm
even
just
I do, for sure.
curiosity.
I do, because I personally feel that extracurricular will be relevant, but I mean, you can restrict it to maybe 4 to 5 lines only. But
Yeah, yeah. Got it, got
Akshay, is this a part of your extracurriculars?
it.
yeah,
I was just about to ask that. She hit the bullseye.
definitely, I'm trying to make my CV. In this webinar. Okay, great. Moving on to the questions which we have. Okay, let's take a couple more from the chat. Okay, so Digvijay has asked, could you please elaborate on how the CVs are checked in B schools? That's a very good question. And we also had a similar question. So guys, can you maybe shed some light on the timelines with respect to the summers and finals? I mean, so for Hirena, it'll be for finals. And for you guys, you can maybe speak about the timelines. How much time do you have to make your CV? How is it checked in your college? Because I think the process of checking in each college will be very different. So maybe you can help the audience with that.
Yeah, so I'll start with this. I remember we effectively get around 1 to 1.5 months, 1.5 months to make the CV, and the placement cell sets 2-3 deadlines like before the final submission. So you have to submit several iterations. So there's iteration 1, 2, and 3, and then the final submission. So you have a shorter deadline, so you always have in your mind like this much progress has been made on my CV, and it's always on your head. So I think that happens, and you keep on preparing your CV. Once the final submission happens, so after say 1.5 months that happens, then the actual checking process starts, and it's like a proper process where for each line, whatever you have written in your
Yeah.
CV, that needs to be verified. So you have slots with the placement cell committee, and then you have to take all the proofs to them. And like if you do not have proper proofs, you again like have to take another slot, get the proofs done. So yeah, so while making your CV, you should also be in touch with your previous companies, previous colleges, etc., wherever you are taking CV points from, so that you get the right approvals, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, and one more step which happens during CV preparations is like after you make a basic version, like a raw version of your CV, it goes to some iterators who will help you refine the points. So, for example, if you've written certain points which can be presented in a better way to make more impact for the recruiters, so this, yeah, at IIM Indore at least, this used to happen that they will assign a mentor to you who will be helping you to refine those points.
Right.
So, finally,
Oh,
sorry.
Harshita, go ahead. No, it's fine. You go ahead.
Now we'll get into a loop of you go first. Okay, so I was just saying that, like I said before, as soon as you enter in the blink of an eye, there are your summer placements. So, funnily enough, from last year, when I entered B school, I started after, a few weeks had elapsed, like a week or two had elapsed in terms of this. So, at least in IIMA, you prepare something which is called a master CV, which includes a laundry list of all the points that you want to include in your final CV. So, last year I observed 2 or 3 of the juniors started contacting me once you get the admit from IIMs in April. They start in May or June. And I was also shook that, oh, people start so early. What was I doing? So at least in terms of laundry listing, all the points that, all the credentials, etc., that you'd like to mention, just start a lot before in terms of that thought process and contacting people that at a later point I'll be contacting you for some verification or proof. Because in the humdrum, if you just start getting in, like while you're formulating the points, after that you get the proofs, that waterfall approach really doesn't, it's very time consuming and might cause a lot of delays, especially at a high stress time. So try and get that done before is my 2 cents on it. Hirena, over to you. Sorry.
Yeah. So in ISB, normally you get about 7 months from the day you start your course to the time that you have your placements. As a school, ISB does not define when you should start making your CV. It's completely up to you. That's the nature of the school. They basically leave it all to the students as to what they should be doing. I would say, based on my experience, a good time to start would be about 3 months prior to the placements. And I'll tell you why. Because normally, people will not apply to one industry or one role or one function. It will be multivariate in nature. So like Harshita said, a good approach is that you have a master CV of your own where you basically list down everything you've ever done in life in terms of work experience, in terms of internship, in terms of education. And then you will need some time to have separate CVs for different industries, because normally it's always a good idea to have your core industry, which for me was FMCG. I was so like hell bent, meko FMCG mein jana hai. So I had one CV that I made for FMCG, but I also had a backup CV because I came from a fintech or a finance background, something related to marketing and financial services. So it's always a good idea to give yourself that buffer time to have a different form of CVs, and also to give yourself buffer time to contact alums who can vet your CV, who can help you out, or even your classmates for that matter. So don't make it too cut to cut that you are in a panic zone. Oh shit, tomorrow's the deadline. I'm making my CV 2 days prior. Have that comfort level with you. Start making your CV beforehand. So by the time you are coming to placements and people are start asking for your resumes, you are in a comfortable spot and confident about what you are submitting.
And one more point for which you should be careful is if you are sending your CV, if you're sending points to get it verified from your previous recruiter or college or whatever, make sure you finalize the points and then send, because many a times if you send it across multiple times, they may not approve it within time or they may not approve it at all. So make sure to do it finally and then only send it across.
Absolutely right. So just summarizing what everyone said, firstly, starting with Hirena, I think 3 months is good enough time to begin. I know there are people who start earlier as well, like Harshita said, but I think 3 months is good enough time to make your CV. I think in most colleges that happens because placements happen in October, November, and you start preparing your CV in July, August. So I think 2-3 months is good enough time to make it. Good points by Richaa, Harshita, and Arpika. All the three said that it's better to get all the proofs ready. Please inform them beforehand that you will be asking for proofs, because trust me, getting proofs can be very, very, very problematic. If let's say you don't have a good relationship with your boss, you can face many problems. I remember I had to change a few wordings in my CV because my boss was not ready to accept all the changes all the wordings which I wanted to showcase. Also,
an even bigger complication arises when the person has left the company. What will you do then? So you need to find their proxy. So it's and at some points you have to find the proof. Their email ID may not work, so you need to get their visiting card. So it's a whole vicious cycle. It's better to get that sorted a lot before.
So, I'll share a very interesting story with you guys. I remember I had participated in some dance events for ICAI, and I wanted to mention that on my CV, and I didn't have the certifications. So literally, I went on Facebook, went through our memories, and showed in the video of the dance performance, and asked them to verify, and they accepted it. But yeah, that's what Placecom will get you to do. They want to check each and everything on your CV. I mean, is that the case in all the colleges? Because in IMK,
no, not at all. So we
That's
don't. So this
exactly.
checking process is very new to me. I'm hearing for the first time that
Oh,
Placecoms actually vet each line, because this is not something that happens at ISB at all. Like our CVs are not vetted from a verification standpoint.
okay.
It's simply the belief is that you will not be faffing on your CV.
And it's not even the lines, it's the specific words. Like if you do not have a word in a proof, they will remove it.
Exactly.
My God, ISB is such a liberal college, Hirena.
Yeah.
It's
There's
it's
nothing
just
like, there's no
butters on me
checking,
now.
and this
Yeah.
whole checking thing is not a part of ISB. You just do what you want to do.
And that is, yeah, Richaa, you're saying something.
So I was saying, like in our case, I remember a few of them could not get proofs till the last moment. Those lines are actually removed. Like you can't keep it, even if your CV is not like up to the full page. Also, it's so strict.
And so the level of checking is that much that, let's say you are saying that you write on XYZ blog and your blog has, let's say, 10,000 views. So they will ask you to open the blog page and show them कि कहाँ पे लिखा है 10,000 plus views. ऐसे लोग मानेंगे नहीं. So so they check each and every word on your CV, each and every word. So yeah, that's how
Hirena
it is.
can't stop laughing at all these things.
But then once you're out of B school, then you can do whatever you want to. So that's great. Right. Great. So I hope, guys, you got a fair idea of what happens on campus regarding the checking of the CVs. Also, as Hirena also mentioned, that normally the best practice is to have different CVs, different CV formats for different for different domains. So your CV for consulting companies would be probably different from the CV for finance companies. So you also have to alter your CV accordingly. Okay, so we now have been asked a few questions. Let's take that up. Okay, so Rutuparna has asked a question for Harshita, that as a fresher, how can I improve my CV and she has a gap year. So will that affect her chances to get into her dream company?
So that's a very recurring question, that whether my gap year will affect my chances or not. The way I think about it is that it's already a thing of the past. So dwelling on whether my gap year will affect or not really adds very little value in terms of how you approach this. So just be very confident, because you must have had your own reasons to take that gap year, and you should be comfortable enough to justify that. So that's one. And the second part of the question was in terms of how to amplify or sort of enhance the CV being a fresher. I would say that most freshers think of it whether some level of certifications, Coursera, Udemy courses are valuable. They're absolutely not, in my opinion. So make the most of the life projects and internships and competitions that you can. Competitions, I understand that being a fresher, you have limited exposure. I don't know your undergrad, college, and your background, but if you have participated in a lot of competitions and you have the experience for that, go for those. Otherwise, it might not be the best way to direct your efforts, but definitely live projects with any company or any NGO of your choice, that would be the most value additive in terms of your CV. Anybody else who wishes to?
Yeah, so I think with respect to the certifications, if you do a very, very relevant certification, like for example, if you want to get into finance and you go for an IB certification, so it's also how you present the point. So instead of just writing that I did a XYZ certification from ABC in ABC company or something, you should go for highlighting the relevant skills that you learn from the certification or whatever the things you learn from it. So for example, like there is a point which I learned something like, how I used to write it was achieved XYZ certification, learning inter area so and so from it. So this is a better way if you present it like this. So in many companies, ATS checking is done. So this verbatim thing might help you during that.
Great. So I hope that your question was answered, Rutuparna. Let's take two more questions and we'll come back to our questions then. One is, Rupa has asked this 4 times, so please let's take this question, which is NISM certification and an equity research internship helpful for people who want to get into finance, who maybe have poor academics? So maybe Arpika, you can maybe take this about. Harshita, you, if you want to go ahead.
I think Arpika has the right experience to say that.
Right.
Regarding NISM certification, I'm not sure about it, but yeah, equity research course, if you have that way, yeah, that may be helpful. Again, it depends on how you frame the points. It is very, very important that you highlight the key parts of it and whatever. So it's not that if you are having, suppose you have a finance internship or a marketing internship. So if in that case also you can have the frame the points two ways. For example, in one of the points you can highlight how the marketing aspect of it, and on the second point you can highlight the finance aspect of it. So when you make two different variants of the resume, you can put the points accordingly. So that also is one aspect which you should take care of.
I just like to make one point here. Certifications. So actually, I had an ISM certifications because I was in finance.
Right.
How they can help is that certifications are nothing but a signaling to the recruiters for something that can cue your interest towards that background, especially if you're a fresher. Or for someone like me who came from finance, but I wanted to get into marketing, I wanted to get into FMCG, and I had no background. I had nothing, aiding me. My specialization in BMS was also finance. So what I used, any form of certification or courses that I did, was just a signaling mechanism to cue my interest towards a particular field that I wanted to go to. So it can help in that manner.
Got it. Right.
Just
So I
to
hope.
add to that, with regards to mentioning the points of certification, apart from bringing out the learnings of it, if you've had a certain level, let's say you lie in the top 1 percentile of the people who have appeared for that, just mention that aspect, that you've excelled at the certification that you chose to opt for. But yes, the signaling mechanism point is very, very valid. So
Yeah,
make sure that it doesn't
right.
cover a huge part of your CV. Just a line or two should suffice, is what I think.
And there is one more added point. So if you have a professional certification, then you may put your CV even if that is not in the relevant domain, because what happens is the recruiters might look at it and they will think that, yeah, this person is interested in working hard and she is doing something. For example, during COVID times, I did a professional certification and that was a talking point during my summer internship interview. So that was a point that the recruiter was very impressed that I've not been sitting idle and working on some professional courses. So yeah.
Great. Okay, so I hope that answered your question, Rupa. Okay, one question, last question, then we move back to our questions. Let's take this question by parts. Very interesting question, which is, hi, this could be very basic, but will the certificates about XYZ event or extracurricular activity be enough, or do you need to have an email or something from, let's say, your school? Now, that's a very, very interesting question. And let me tell you, your certificate will be enough, but the problem is when you highlight your extracurricular activity, you might want to say that, let's say if you're talking about a case competition, you might want to say that there were 50,000 people who participated, you won XYZ amount of money, it was about XYZ, this was a topic of the competition. So I think all these will not be covered in your certificate. So it is better to get a mail rather than the certificate. I mean, that is my opinion. Guys, what do you think?
I completely agree to that. Certificates mention everything at a very high level, and PlaceCom, at least in the IIMs, do not take that on the face value. You have to get a mail or a letter with the letterhead of the undersigned authority.
Yes,
Same
Richaa,
with
you were
me.
saying something.
Yeah, same with me. Like I had certificates, but I had to get approvals from my college people. So yeah.
Great. Right. So I hope that answered your question, Parth. Great. Okay, moving back. So we've discussed certifications, I think, in detail. We've also discussed mentorship. So just to basically summarize mentorship part also, as all the panelists said, that you are allotted a couple of mentors from your college, but apart from that, you should also maybe reach out to maybe your dream companies, mentors from your dream companies. So for example, let's say if you want to get into HUL, etc., then maybe you can reach out to people who have been a part of HUL in their summers or finals, or your seniors, and then that can help you. So we've discussed mentorships and we've discussed certifications. Let's talk about two things. How important are competitions and live projects? I mean, do they add a lot of value according to you?
So yeah, definitely. Like I got my PPU through a case competition. So yeah, competitions are definitely very important. So yeah, please go on, Hirena.
So I'm going to go back to the point I made earlier. See, if you have someone who has work experience, okay, and you have worked for 2 years or 3 years or whatever, even 1.5 to 2 years, before your MBA, and then you want to go to a similar field or a function or a domain, I'm not sure how much value add it will be unless you are aiming for a route that Arpika is mentioning, that getting a PPO through the competition. If that is not the case, if you have worked and you want to change your industry function, etc., again, it is something that you should use as a queuing or a signaling mechanism towards the industry or a function or a role that you want to get into. And third one, if you're a fresher and you know, competitions and live projects can also be used to identify your interests if you are a fresher. So that is also why you should be doing it. Don't just think about it only from a CV or a resume standpoint. Also think about it as an opportunity that the school is giving you to see whether you really like it or not. It could be as simple as that. And then if you like it, great, put it on your CV. You can talk about it extensively if you've really done some good work. If you won case competition, that always helps. But think of it from multiple standpoints rather than just will look good on my CV. You might not even need it at all if you have the relevant work experience.
I think, as Hirena mentioned, that for freshers, it's a way of identifying their interests as well, and I think it also helps in enhancing your skills, because you work with a set of people, you work on different areas, you get to present your findings, your analysis. So I think it's a great way of learning. Life projects can be treated as mini internships, maybe. So yeah, it's helpful that way.
But there are a lot of case competitions and live projects, etc., opportunities that come on campus. And especially if you're talking about it from a perspective of summers, you have very little time in that sense. You have to build your CV, you have to participate, you have your courses. In IIMA, we used to have weekly quizzes as well. So everything's going on at the same time. So make sure you prioritize in that sense in terms of the competitions you really want to participate or have an inclination towards the sector. And also, if you participate in too many of the competitions with different people, your coordination challenges will be mammoth. So if you choose to participate, ensure it's with a certain set of people so that you can manage your case preparation and your competitions parallelly.
Yes, great points raised by Harshita. Also talking about the 2 points raised by Arpika and Hirena, that if you want to get a PPO, case competitions are a good way to get a PPO. So there are cases that in certain colleges, certain companies do not come. So case competitions are a good way to get PPOs from that colleges, from those companies, basically. So that is a good way to basically get into your dream company, so to say. And also, as Richaa and Hirena mentioned, that you can signal the employer what you prefer, basically, and you can gain some good skills also.
And to add to that, some companies hire only through case competitions. Like there are companies like JPMC, HSBC, IB and all, they hire for that role only through the case comp. So yeah, so that is also important to keep in mind.
Right. Okay, so guys, now that we've discussed a lot about how to make your profile, let's get into the CV now. You all have probably spent a lot of time making your CV. What are your top do's and don'ts? And maybe what we can do is maybe we can divide the CV into 4 parts. Let's start with academics. Any specific tips for academics you have? So what we'll do is we'll divide it into 4 parts: academics, work experience, extracurricular, and PORs. So let's start with academics, if that is okay.
So a general point for all the 4 sections which you have to keep in mind is, do not, no matter what happens, do not put a point on which you cannot elaborate. If you do not have the relevant information or whatever to not elaborate on that point, do not mention it on the CV.
Absolutely. I mean, you can be asked anything by your employer, by your future employer. So only write those things which you are comfortable with. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. So see, again, with the sections that you have in your CV, be a little calculative about it. It's going to be a 1 page. Okay. So you will have to decide how much percentage of the space you want to give to each section. So for me, because I had 3 years of work experience, I didn't dedicate a lot of space to my academic section. I was not a topper or anything either that I could say great things about my academic background. So if you have work experience, and if you want to dedicate, say, almost 50 to 60% of your space to work experience, you just need to put under the academic background what you are doing, what you're majoring in your MBA course, what your undergrad degree is. That's about it. And maybe if you want to add one liner on some extracurriculars that you're doing in your MBA. So for example, I was leading this one festive event sort of a thing at ISB. So I did mention that because I didn't want to mention my GPA. I was not one of those people who had a great GPA or anything like that. And I always knew I was going to play on my extracurriculars because that is where my strength was and interest was, and sort of that. So be calculative about how much space you're dedicating to each section. And for academic background also, about how much role it will play for the industry or the function that you are applying to. For FMCG and marketing, it's not, yes, academics plays a role. I'm not saying it doesn't, but anyway, you have showed your rigor by just being in that school or being in that campus. So if you're applying to a function like marketing, which is what I can comment upon a little confidently, your extracurriculars will play a good enough role as well, along with your academic background.
If I could go next
Yeah,
in
please,
terms
please,
of
please.
the academics bit,
Right.
since Hirena has elaborated a lot on the extracurriculars bit. So in academics, you need to ensure that you're quantifying your achievement, whether you're in top 1% or top 2%. And here is where what Akshay was initially saying in terms of getting the proofs. So I remember a lot of people had to go to the CBSE CBSE office in Delhi to get the proofs, etc. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that challenging. You can visit the CBSE website, etc., to get the proofs as well. But in that sense, you need to ensure that you are highlighting what percentage what percentage you lie in the pool, whether you have the ranks. So ensure you front load those numbers when you're mentioning the point. Rank so and so out of these many students, the pool of the people you're competing with. So this is about your GPA percentage or your ranks. In terms of the thing that stands out the most in academics is scholarships. So if you have had scholarships at any point in your academic or professional journey, etc., whatever, they stand out the most. Even within scholarships, I've seen people who mention the amount of the scholarship that they receive, or the where in the top, what percentage they lie out of how many people were they the chosen ones to receive the scholarship. So I've that would be my take on the academics bit. Especially if you're a fresher, your academics play a huge role, because other than that, there's nothing much that you can highlight in that sense. You can of course focus on your positions of responsibilities and extracurriculars, but what I have felt is that academics are a huge precursor to how your overall CV shapes out to be.
Yeah, so two
Right.
things you should always keep in mind. Like, number one, whether you are a fresher or you have work ex, because that is how a recruiter will look at you. So if you have 2 years of work ex, don't put in a lot of academic points which are way back from your school days, class 11, 12, because it should be relevant. It should be recent, what you have done recently. So I think that recency effect matters. And second is, of course, you should customize your CV as per the industry. If you are applying for finance, what are they looking for? So for academics, also mention those points. Even if you're in a college or in a school, you have done something good in finance, you have achieved something in that domain, mention those specifically. You don't need to mention other areas. So keep that in mind.
Great. So great points raised once again. Let's just summarize it quickly. One is, please quantify achievements, as I think Hirena mentioned. That as Harshita mentioned, please quantify achievements. Put in as many numbers as possible, because let's say if you are rank 1 out of 100 students or out of 500 students, it's quite different. It's better to always quantify it. Second is balance your sections, as Hirena mentioned. I think I really like this point, because I remember I did not have many PORs. So what I did was, when I was interning with inside IIM, I actually showed that internship as a POR. Just so that all the sections are properly let's say divided. So balancing of sections is very important, and you have to be smart about it. And each point where you can show as, let's say, in different sections, you have to be smart about that and balance your CV accordingly. Then, as Richaa mentioned, old points are become less and less relevant. So let's say you won a maths competition in 2010. Now it's 11, 12 years after that. Is it really that relevant? I don't think so. So try to be as recent as possible, because if let's say your last academic achievement is in 2010, iska matlab kya last 12 years mein you have not achieved anything. So be as recent as possible. And lastly, customize your CV as per the industry you are applying to. And because we are talking about that, can you guys maybe shed some light on how you can do it? So let's say, all of you are from as such different industries. So maybe, Hirena, you can give a more sales, marketing, or FMCG, outlook. Arpika, you can give a finance one, and Richaa can give a consulting one, and Harshita, maybe you can give a consulting / Gen Man look into how you can customize your CV for every other domain.
Should I go first?
Yeah, please, Hirena. Yeah, sure.
Can someone else go first? I want to take a minute to think.
Yeah, okay. So I will give an example of how to frame the same point for different roles, for the finance role and for the marketing role. So for the fin side of it, suppose the point is analysis of demand fluctuations and blockages in revenue generation. So work on so and so for this. In this, if the same point you have to write for the marketing viewpoint, you can write it as strategies to gain more brand visibility and recognition. So for the same point, but the two different ways of writing it. So this is how you can customize that if you have to write for the fin side or if you have to write for the marketing side.
Got it. Also, adding, my 2 cents maybe, from what I've heard, Arpika, is that mainly finance companies are not very concerned about your extracurriculars. They are more focused on your work ex and acad, right? I know there was a rumor that finance companies actually CV niche se fold kar dete hain because that contains your extracurricular, etc. So yeah, great. Thanks.
So,
yeah. So when you think about, sorry. Please go on, Richaa.
Please go on.
No, so what I was saying was that in that sense, when you focus on making your CV for the different sectors, just see that we were discussing right now, right? That extracurricular and PO has become less relevant. So maybe in terms of how you want to focus on the section, that's the first bit. And the second bit at the broadest level is that your CV for consulting and fin and your CV for marketing, Genman, Prodman, these two will be very separate. Okay, you can club marketing and Genman and consulting and fin to some extent.
Okay.
When you're thinking about consulting and fin, it becomes of paramount importance to ensure that you quantify the points a lot and you make sure that the impact of what you did is at the fore. So for example, it's commonly referred to as that every point should be able to answer the so what of that point. In that sense, so whether it's led to some cost optimization or something, just it should come out at the front. And when you're talking about marketing and Genman, the softer aspects of your personality in terms of taking ownership or leading something, etc., that should be the focus area. So PORs and extracurriculars become very important in that sense.
Okay, I can go next now.
Yeah.
So basically, my CV, the CV that I made was very customized and focused to marketing and sales. I'll make a couple of points on that. The first is there are the two words in terms of formats that are said in B School. One is the STAR format that people follow. One is something called an REC or something format that people follow. In marketing, like Harshita mentioned, they are not very they are result focused, but they'll not look at this XYZ percentage impact is what you've made. They'll also equally look at what is it that you have done in terms of maybe you were leading a digital marketing campaign for XYZ company that you were working for. So the actions that you have taken play an important role when it comes to your marketing CVs. The second thing is understand what kind of a company you're applying for in terms of the marketing or the sales role. If it's a product marketing kind of a role, then any sort of experience in digital marketing makes sense. So you might want to enter a few keywords in terms of SEO optimization or A/B testing or search campaigns and stuff like that. Third is, in a marketing or a sales CV, I would definitely recommend adding any PORs that you have. I feel, again, because they work on the softer aspects of your personality rather than hard technical skills, any position of responsibility would play an important role and would definitely have an ad on your CV. And next is your extracurriculars activities. Again, that is something that they definitely looked at. So I had checked with the HR of my company that, what were you looking at in terms of the CV? And these were the few points that they did highlight. Okay, and next one is also internships. So I didn't have one, but if in IIM, so if you've done a summer internship, that will play an important role in your marketing or sales CV as well. Especially if you've done a marketing internship, that will be a talking point of your CV in your final placements.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes, Richaa, you're saying something. Yeah.
So I prepared my CV more from a consulting point of view. And when I look at, how a day to day life in consulting happens, you work across various industries and you work across various functions. So you should make your CV keeping in mind that variety. What they are looking out for is that you should have worked across various functions. You should have worked across, various roles. You need to take ownership and responsibility. So there the PORs, matter a lot. And of course, your work ex and internships play a important role in highlighting, what you can do differently, how much experience you have. So keep in mind of what kind of role you're applying for and what the day-to-day thing will entail, and basis that maybe try to show show those factors in your CV that you also have that to survive in that company or in that domain.
Got it. And just adding one point to what Richaa mentioned, because I was part of the consulting domain as well. As part of the recruitment team at Deloitte, what we used to always prefer was people who have also had some experience with consulting, because it's always easier to hire people because they are sort of better trained. So and I think Hirena would agree, because that's how that's the entire concept behind ISB. Great.
No, but to that point, I do want to specify that yes, marketing roles, if it's a PMM role that you're going for, or marketing in a non-FMCG industry, then yes, your past work experience, if you have any, will play a role. But that being said, FMCG as an industry is slightly industry agnostic when they are hiring. Because normally in an MBA campus, FMCGs will hire for a management trainee position. Now, in a management trainee position, anyway, the kind of work experience you've had doesn't matter a lot, because they tend to hire freshers to a larger extent than people like me who had 3 years of work experience. And I remember even when they came to recruit at ISB, they had a cap. They didn't want people who have more than 3 years of work experience for this position. So FMCG as an industry is a little different in terms of marketing, that they are not very industry specific in terms of your experience.
Got it. Right. Okay, so let's, I think we are left with around 10 minutes. We have quite a few questions asked by, by the audience. So let's take these questions. The first one is very tricky. So I hope one of you takes it, which is, it's asked by Shaiban Ansari. Now, Shaiban feels that he does not have many points to write on his CV. So what can he do to maybe, improve his CV or add points? Any tips you have?
Okay. So it would depend a little on how much time do you have. Are you already entering campus, or do you have around a year or so by the time you want to join your B school? So coming to the first scenario, that you have time. Say you want to get into the next batch or something like that. If you already know that you don't have a lot of points in your CV, that in itself is a great point. That okay, you are self-aware, pata hai kuch nahi hai. So in that case, start working. Maybe work for a while in an NGO. Get some of that experience. Get some form of a certification, which we have already discussed. Do an internship in case you are not working full time. Do some form of an internship. So take your time before you are going to a B school to collect your CV points.
Right.
Okay, that is a simple scenario. Second scenario, in case you're already getting into a B school, which is where you have a very limited amount of time to now collect CV points, say 4 months, nothing more than that. So in case that is the scenario, then you have to be very rigorous in your B school, in the sense that kindly apply for some form of a POR, kindly do all form of case competitions, also do live projects, so that you have something to talk about. It's as simple as that. So it could only be one of these two scenarios, and this is the approach that you have to take. If you have if you're in a B school, you will have a lot of opportunities to collect CV points also in a very short period of time.
And just adding on to what Hirena has said, you have to be very, very rigorous in your B school. And, maybe what you can try to do is be in the top 5% of the batch, because I think if you are in the top 5%, even if your CV is not that great, you will still get many opportunities. What do you guys think?
No, most definitely. I would say that apart from adding new points to it, that's definitely a given. But your initial point that I don't have much points, I would say just take a break from this clutter, because even when all of us started out, I believe I'd say for all of us over here, we think we have done nothing.
Yeah.
So just take a pause, reflect, and just enlist down all the points or anything that comes to your mind from your school journey till now. So just make a mental note of all of that, and then you can start prioritizing based on relevance and recency, like Richaa was mentioning. But most definitely, don't start off with this negative notion that you don't have anything.
Yeah, and also don't take a lot of pressure because you have 2 years in the MBA. So even if in your till your summers you don't have enough points, you have 2 years of MBA to do a variety of stuff, and then you will have enough points while the time you are preparing your final placement ka CV. So you can
Yeah, because
prioritize that
even in
best.
IIM interviews, you have to prepare something or the other, and there are a few points in your mind that you talk about. So it's not like you're starting off from the scratch. I completely disagree with that.
Great. Okay, so I hope that answered the question, Shaiban. Let's take one more question from Praveen. He has asked, some good practices to describe your work experience effectively. So I think we've spoken on academics in detail. Any tips for work experience? Obviously you need to quantify as much as possible, as we already discussed. Any other points which you guys can think of? One point which I think you guys have already mentioned is that try to also mention the kind of impact you've had. So if you've increased sales by XYZ percentage, increase efficiency, mention those things. Any other things which you can think of?
Yeah, so for one of the recruiters, my entire 30-35 minutes of the summer internship interview was on my one work ex point, not even the multiple points, just one point. And
Right.
they went on to discuss each and every nuance of that point, like how it happened, why it happened, what did you do, how did you come out of that situation, what was the impact, how did it affect your client or something. So make sure that whatever points you are mentioning, you have to be so thorough about it, because you never know that which point they will pick up and how long. Means they will go it to the every smallest detail possible. So this you have to take care of.
Right. So be aware of whatever point you're mentioning. Any other things which you want to add, or should we move on?
One point that really helped me was so when I first made my CV, it was simply work experience. This is the company and point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I later fine tuned it, and this helped me a lot. Is that even within your work ex, you can have sections. I used to work with a fintech startup. So because I worked with a startup, I did multiple roles. So what I did to structure my work experience, basically, I had a header which said business development, then I had a header which said digital marketing, and I mentioned 2 points. Then I had a header which said stakeholder management, and I mentioned 2 points. That could be a helpful way to it makes it easier for the recruiter to read your CV also, and for you to give a broad range of experiences that you've had.
That is actually a very good point. And even in my CV, what I've done is I've divided workix into 3 sections, which is roles and responsibilities, initiatives, and awards and achievements. So, it's the recruiter can read whatever he wants to read. Richaa, you were also saying something, or should we move on?
We can move on. I think I was mentioning the same point as you mentioned just now. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay. Right. So Raju has asked, what matters most? It's a very interesting question. What matters most, company, brand name, or role offered? Hirena,
No, I'm saying I didn't get the question.
What matters most, the brand name of the company or the role which is being offered?
Why, when you're applying to a new role in B school?
Yeah. So what he means to say is, let's say if he's from, let's say, JP Morgan, but he has done an IT role. Is that better, or is it maybe better to do your finance internship from a smaller company but have a better role? Which do you think is more important? I think it's a very broad question. We cannot clearly.
Yeah, it's very subjective, it differs, the opinion differs from person to person. If you ask for my opinion, it's the role that matters. Somebody else would say it's the brand name or how well recognized the company is across the campuses. So it's very subjective based on your priorities.
I think it depends on the recruitment team, how they basically how they basically shortlist. One thing which I would definitely want to say is, I think a brand sometimes can have a higher precedence, just because when you're shortlisting CVs, you don't have much time, so maybe you just see a good brand and you maybe trust that person more. What do you think? Or not really? I mean, would you
I have one thing, okay, that I want to talk about, because I work with a startup, so I definitely didn't have a brand name to myself.
Okay.
But the role that I did was great, because it was a typical startup. I was the second or third employee, so I had a lot of different responsibility that I was looking at. So I had a Morgan Stanley, which was a big brand name. Then I had a startup. So two very different companies from that standpoint. Now I'll say something. Maybe in terms of CV shortlisting, your brand name would help, but in the interviews, I am telling you, all my conversation was around the startup. About the work that I was doing, what my experience was, what was the result, what was the startup into. So all my conversation in my interviews were completely about that role, not so much about my previous work experience. So once you go to the interview stage, definitely the role that you have done, if it's a better role, that's going to help.
It's the best if you can balance whether you have the good brand names and the roles. Like she said, right, the startup point became the major talking point during her conversation. So it's better to balance if you have good brand names in your kit.
Yeah, so just on a lighter note, in campuses, people used to recognize people by the brand which they are associated with, no matter what the role.
Right. So, sometimes that can happen. Okay, great. So Jitu has asked a very interesting question. How can you mention the client-based details in a CV, as a major portion, if a major portion of it is confidential? Is there a way to get around this?
Yeah, so that's not that difficult. For example, if you're working for, say, GMR, then you can write it as a leading infra giant or something.
100%.
And a lot of people mention their market cap as well. Absolutely. So you can quantify the scale of the client, but at the same time keep it confidential. Just mention the sector you're into.
Yes, Richaa, you also saying something?
Yeah, I also said the same thing as Harshita, that you can mention the market cap or revenue.
Yes, and I think as consultants, this is what everyone does. You just mention the some details about the client, not the name of the client, because that is confidential always.
Value you create and the industry you have worked in, that is what matters.
Right.
I think it's secondary from your CV point of view. So yes.
Okay, so Tushar has asked, can a merchant navy guy join a IIM? Will there be advantage, disadvantage? I think anybody can join an IIM, even if you are from merchant navy. I don't think that is a big problem. I had people from in my batch who are from merchant navy. Okay.
I have a very close friend who's joined from the Navy. After 6 years into the Navy, he's gone to Extracurriculars. So it's very much possible. Just wanted to say.
Actually, and I think my view is that if now there'll probably be 80 engineers in your batch. There'll probably be 50 commerce people, and there'll be 5 people who have different backgrounds. Maybe a couple of lawyers, 1% from the Navy, etc. So you are different basically, because. So there's a good chance that you will not only have disadvantages, you actually have advantages because you are different. So, yeah. So I don't think that's a problem at all.
Yes. I remember one of my classmates in IIM. He, I think, had the most, diversified profile. He had done engineering, then he had worked with some bank for a few years. Then he became a model and, casting director. Then he had come to IIM, so it was,
crazy.
But all his interviews were about his story, how can you do so much?
I think even Harshita, even in your college, I think I heard that some Miss India or someone had joined, right?
Yeah, that was in a batch or two before us. Okay. But there was a classmate of mine who was an engineer but had done CA as well. I was like,
Oh.
what is this CV? Yeah.
Wow.
No, I think diversification is always a strength. In
Yeah.
ISB, in fact, it really helps to have a diversified profile. So if you're a merchant navy, or if you even come from a media background, or if you're a lawyer or a doctor, those kind of profiles are really wanted. Let me put it that way, in a B school, because you are the diversification factor. You are that percentage that they are going to show in
Yeah.
diversified candidates.
Correct. But even apart from that percentage, we are just two doctors in our batch. And they, like, everyone recognized them, and they
Yeah,
were, even the
correct.
companies were so enthused about their profiles. So, in that sense, also, not just from a percentage perspective, but also in terms of the placements perspective, it really helps.
Great. Okay, guys. I think with that, let's just take one last question, because one last question aa chuka hai. So let's take it. Uh, One more question with respect to gap. I think that's a very common pain point for most people. Uh, can I get into a top B school with a 2-year gap in my CV? I've completed CFA and FRM, currently working in a large MNC. Uh, Honestly, I think a 2-year gap, if you're able to, clearly communicate why the gap was, I don't think there's a problem. I'm sure in all of your B schools as well, you will have people who are ex-UPSC aspirants who could not make it, and then they have joined a B school, and they also have gaps, but they do end up getting good placements. What do you guys think about this? Will that be a big problem?
I don't think so, because I had a gap year. After my BMS, I had almost a year gap before I started working. And to be honest, after that, I had 3 years of work experience. It never played a role. It never came up as a deterrent in terms of shortlisting, or as even a point that people spoke about during my interviews. Even if they had, and if you have a very logical and an honest reasoning to it, it's completely fine. Just keep in mind, it's not a crime to have a gap year. So don't take it in that manner that you've done something wrong and you're going to be reprimanded for it. That's not the case. Just have a genuine, legit reason as to why you have a gap, and it'll be fine.
When you come from a place of considering it a crime, it generally happens that you end up lying about it, and so miserably. So it's better to just own up that, and I'm sure everyone has some or the other reason. So just, it's not always a health concern. So if you have to take a pause in your life just to be able to get a breather, it's completely all right. I don't see much point in lying about it per se.
Plus, I think that every person has some problem in his CV. किसी का CV perfect तो है नहीं. So I'm sure each of us also have had some issue which we've tried to cover up later. So I don't think it's that big a problem. Anyways, guys, with that, I think let's wrap this up. Before we wrap this up, just one last thing which I want to tell you about is that Inside IIM is coming up with a summer placement bootcamp. It's going to start within the next couple of weeks. Let me also just quickly share my screen here. You will have sessions by top IIM graduates. I'll be taking a couple of sessions. We have Pratik Ranjan from BCG taking a couple of sessions. So if you want to enter into your dream domain post your MBA, it's a good session to, basically, it's a good program to basically know more about different domains, etc. So guys, do look it up, and if you're interested, sign up for it. You have a detailed brochure, so we hope to see you become part of it. All right, with that, I want to wrap this session. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank firstly the panelists, Arpika, Hirena, Richaa, and Harshita, for taking out time on a Sunday, that too. Thank you so much. Thanks to Hirena, we got to know a lot more about ISB. And I hope that the IIM Placecom takes some points out of how the ISB placement committee works, that we don't have to showcase each and every point of ours. So guys, thanks a lot for taking out time. It was an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and there were quite a few learning points for me as well. Also, I would like to thank the audience for tuning in. We loved the questions, and hope to see you soon next week, same time, where we will take up another interesting question. So thank you and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Akshay.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.